don't have my microphone on. There we go. Hi, everyone. We're back again. Okay, and board members, I think we're just going to move on to section 5 now for reports.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. So under item 5A, we've got the report on the Carroll County Teacher Advisory Council agenda topics and action plan for 2020-21. And Dr. Lockard, I'll hand it over to you, but we're about to go through this for each one of the board-appointed committees.
Correct. So board members, you may recall in June that we presented the annual reports on activities for each of your advisory councils. It was our collective desires last year to convert that process into sort of a work session format and bring folks in, but the pandemic interfered with that. So we intend to have that annual work session hopefully next June, where we can do that and bring folks in. But the August board meeting begins the annual process of setting agenda topics for each advisory council to focus on the coming school year. Each year at the August meeting, we bring the annual agenda topics and action plans for your advisory councils. They're presented here for you as a series of reports. We do have staff liaisons available on the meeting this evening if you have any questions about any of those. Later on in the agenda, not to be confused, we'll have as action items approving the annual membership for each advisory council as well. So with that, I return to the board for any questions regarding any of the agenda topics for the advisory councils.
Okay, so board members, do we just want to quickly go through each one of the individual ones and see if we had any questions? Mr. Anderson, I know that you have provided the materials and signed off for, I think, is it 3 or 4 of these?
Yeah, and I can start with the Teacher Advisory Council agenda. Essentially, we've narrowed the list from last year. Some is similar, as President Civigny, you were on our virtual committee meeting, and Dr. Dorsey, you're also part of this committee. Our instructional technology plan, as you can imagine, has to be completely revamped now because we covered a significant amount of it in a very short amount of time. We have to now really start focusing on also professional learning. We're looking at building capacity of teachers very differently than we ever have before. And obviously common formative assessment as we move forward, looking at different types of metrics and having some consistency across our school system for all schools to use is something we're going to be focused on this year with our agenda items.
And thanks, Mr. Anderson. I just wanted to reiterate what you said about how the way we're going to be looking at the instructional technology plan is.
Mr. Eccles is on in regards to the Career and Technology Technological Education Committee.
I guess they didn't hear that I was. Hey, Jason?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you could hear me. It's a little tough with the masks on, but so I just wanted to reiterate what you said about the instructional technology plan as part of the Teachers Advisory Committee, because I think the progress that we made last year was instrumental in having such a good out of the gate start in the spring versus other counties, right? I mean, the fact that we were already going down that path, but what we were planning to do in the spring meeting of the TAC is now probably going to be very different because we've already jumped into several aspects of the instructional technology plan that we were planning to work through.
Absolutely. That's correct. We have some work that we have to go back and see, okay, here's where we are as a system. We made huge acceleration in a short period of time. And some of it's been done really well, and some of it needs to go back and be reevaluated. We want to hear from our teachers in regards to where we are.
Right. So can that be essentially kind of be used as a lessons learned kind of approach to everything that, because we're learning as we go, right? There's a lot of changing going on. So if that can, instead of it being necessarily the instructional technology plan, more of a lessons learned and how do we learn, evolve.
Yeah. And I think President Civigny, you took part in that very similar type of structure that we did virtually, where we were hearing from the teachers what's the reality of what's taking place right now. But we can do that more comprehensively at the beginning of this fall when we meet.
Okay. Board members, any other questions on TAC?
think Mr. Eccles is prepared to go into the Career Technical Education Advisory.
Sure. So the LAC, as we call it, is going to be focused again this year on helping us with the needs assessment to be in compliance with the Perkins funding. The U.S. Department of Education, based on the congressional reauthorization of Perkins, changed the rules on us for how Perkins funding is acquired last year. So we'll be working with the LAC group and making sure that we are ready to go for the next round of Perkins funding for the upcoming year. So that's a big focus. And of course, keeping them up to date on programmatic changes, the progress of the construction on the tech center. And of course, they'd like to help us with the mock job interviews for the career and tech students. And we'll have to see what that looks like when we get to that time in the fall. But hopefully we will be able to do in person, or if not, some kind of virtual mock job interviews to get those students ready to go out to work.
President Savigny, if there's no questions in regards to that.
Is everyone okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. So we can move on to Curriculum Council?
Yeah, Ms. McCausland?
Sure. Good evening. This year, the Curriculum Council plans to meet in work groups to focus on equity, virtual and blended learning, school counseling, and identifying and improving instructional resources. We need to start doing more work with career development, with social emotional, and also with vetting our curriculum to make sure that it is diverse and meets the needs of all of our students.
So just out of curiosity, you have snow dates on here. I mean, with virtual technology and everybody well-versed in that now, do we really need snow dates anymore?
Well, my hope is definitely that we can meet face-to-face to do this work with work groups. I'm going to be bringing in colleagues, Judy Jones, content supervisors, school counseling, Judy Klinger, to do a lot of the work within the small work groups. So, and I would like to be present for all of them. And if it's all at the same time, it might be difficult to jump in and out. So I really want to meet face-to-face if at all possible, which is, November the 20th. I'm hoping we're going to be there by then.
Ms.
Okay, and
Savigny,
are the
actually,
times going to remain the same, Angie?
I'm still working on that, Dr. Dorsey.
Okay.
My thought is to have maybe some sessions in the morning and some sessions in the afternoon, but I want to make sure I'm meeting all the council members' needs so they can all attend and be involved.
Okay, thanks.
just a point of clarification about future snow days. I am seeking clarification I will be seeking clarification from MSDE about how we can officially do that and build that into our calendar. If there is one little tiny
Silver lining.
to all this is that maybe we never need snow days again. So
Right.
I am exploring
Right.
that for us,
Absolutely.
for future calendars.
Yep.
But before we move on to the next committee, could I just go back to Career and Tech for a second? So, Bill, I'm sorry, Mr. Eccles, you had talked about the Thursday, September 10th meeting, and I know that there are some very burning issues of parents in our community about, Career and Tech and how that's being handled with small groups. And, we've got the jump start for the last 2 weeks in August, and then the phased approach for the groups in the fall. But would there be any benefit to having more of a community type of meeting on Thursday, the 10th, or at least a community session to kind of answer parents' questions? Or I don't know if that's something that would really be addressed by the advisory council or.
Well, the LAC is really more the business side, not the parent side. We certainly could have a parent meeting and discuss those issues, but I don't know that the LAC meeting is the appropriate venue for that.
Okay. Okay.
But I would be happy to take care of that if that's what you guys would like.
Marcia, did you have any?
No, that might answer a lot of questions for parents and
make up work and things like that since they missed hours. I think that might be a good idea. Yeah, but I understand, because Mr. Eccles is right, that would not be the appropriate time for
right.
that. But that is a very good suggestion. It is. Because those kids lost a lot of hours.
Right.
And trying to figure out ways to get them made up, and also internships, and how are we going to get them out to the community, out in the community again. So, yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay.
Okay, sorry
I'll bring
about
Ms.
that.
Donovan in and set something up.
Thank you, Mr. Eccles.
Thanks, Mr. Eccles. Okay, so then on to the CAC. Oh,
Ms. Gaddis.
I am here.
All
I
right.
had to go into the next room.
I turned around and you weren't there anymore, Carrie.
We'll let that go if I talk in the room. The Community Advisory Council will be meeting 4 times this year. The council expressed an interest in meeting earlier in the year, so we'll be starting much earlier in September this year. And our topics will include some of the traditional favorites, such as legislation and budget. But when we talk to the members about what they're interested in, there's a lot of interest in virtual learning and how we're handling things with COVID-19. So we're going to try and do a lot of education with the group on those topics. Also, the group is always interested in what the board will be assigning them to do throughout the year.
And Carrie, on that point, I would like to bring up that, you know, at some point last year, we had voted to put an item on the agenda every month to talk specifically about at the end of the board meeting, were there topics that we wanted to have brought to the CAC to investigate or discuss? And when COVID hit and the world just changed, I think that has kind of fallen off the agendas. But I would like to make sure that we get that back on the monthly agendas moving forward.
I think that would be valuable, and that shows some communication between the board and the Community Advisory Council members.
Right. Board members, anything? Oh, no, sorry, that'll be for later. Any other questions on CAC?
Well, their comment, the committee recommendations of the boards in the minutes is develop a protocol for reporting feedback to the board. Is that something to discuss, or has that worked, the feedback from there, or is that something needs to be talked about also?
I think there has been feedback from the CAC
Yes.
back to the board, but I think there's definitely a way to make that probably more effective. Some of that feedback coming back. So if we specifically ask for them to investigate specific topics and bring feedback back to the board, I mean, if it could be something maybe a little bit more formal than us just asking, okay, so what was CAC's feedback on that particular item? If it can be more of a formalized report, or if we have very specific questions that we want to lay out for them and get, so I think it's just a discussion of that type of direction. Is that right, Carrie?
Yes.
In terms of how do they think would be the most effective way to give that feedback back to us? Does that answer your question, Kenny?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. I smiled under my mask.
And I'm guessing that first meeting will be virtual on the 15th?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so then we can move on to SEAC.
Yeah. Nick?
Good evening. We have our typical pattern of 4 meetings. You can see the topics listed there. What is a little bit unique for next year is SEAC had asked if we could hold some town halls. We typically meet every other month for SEAC, but the months in between, we are going to host a town hall meeting with myself and staff. The first one you can see is about virtual learning for students with disabilities. That's going to be coming up next week even. So that'll be a good opportunity for SEAC and families just to ask questions in an informal, setting, and do my best to answer as we go. But I think that'll be a nice addition to our work as SEAC.
This is a very active group. I am on this committee, and they do a great job. I think they can compare notes. It's like, well, and relate to their experiences all the time. So, and they need that.
And Nick, I would imagine a lot of the discussions earlier in the year are going to be focused on the impacts of COVID and services and impacts and on their students, and discussions about better ways to, as we assess, learn, and evolve, right? I mean, this group is going to be an essential piece of feedback for that.
It's essential for feedback. The group does a tremendous job in keeping me informed and helping me in our daily practice make sure that we're doing our best to meet our students' needs with disabilities.
Thanks, Nick. And on to the Security Advisory Council.
Board members, Mr. Williams is on a well-deserved evening off with his family tonight, so I can touch on these, or Ms. Herbert might wish to as well. She's a very active member of the Security Council, as well as Ms. Battaglia. But the charges before you are from the report from June, where the Security Council not only reported on last year's activities, but also did take a moment to look toward next year, and they're recommending that the focus areas be sort of an internal audit process. We've spent a lot of the last few years, Mr. Williams' first few years with us, enhancing kind of our physical security, cameras, visitor management, other things that you've seen come before you. And now we'd really like to have kind of a formalized process by which we go out and take a look at how well those things are functioning, our culture, our protocols, how are they being implemented. And that won't be about getting someone or got you. It's about looking for strengths and weaknesses and then identifying changes we need in practice or training, that sort of thing. The second area is training. Training's been a focus for several years now, and what we really like to try to do this year is move more from just meeting the legal requirement of doing active shooter training at every location and maybe holding one larger county-wide tabletop activity each year to getting into, still doing that because that's required, but moving into more additional scenario training at the school or department level as well, perhaps tabletop activities among small groups of folks in schools or in departments so that we can reach more people. And then the final area is also a repeat from last year. We've taken some initial steps that we feel are positive with parent outreach. We know we have a lot further to go to build on that, but we also really want to start to get in touch directly with our students and the important people that Ms. Mystery represents and talk to them about our security program and deepen their understanding and develop some internal leadership that way. So those are the recommended areas before you. And the 4 days the council meets quarterly, those dates are also before you.
Well, I'm actually glad to hear that Dwayne had a day off. I'm not sure that, has he ever had a day off? It doesn't doesn't feel like it with how many things he's been involved in.
Get too many days off now.
All right. Board members, any questions on that? All right. Great, thank you, Mr. O'Neill. And with that, I guess we can move on to item 5G, which is the school construction report. Dr. Locker, did you want to kick that off or hand it over to Mr. Marks?
Yeah, I'm going to. This is our monthly construction report, as you know. Now that the work is beginning, I am going to turn to Mr. Marks here in a minute for a brief update on the start of the Carroll County Career and Technology Center project. There are no major concerns with the project and the timeline. I think Mr. Marks and his team adjusted some minor sequencing to the initial work, so I'm going to ask him to talk about that in a second. Also, as we've discussed in the past, we do intend to have a groundbreaking ceremony right after the start of the school year in September. The SCADIS is working with Mr. Marks and helping to coordinate the event. So board members, you'll start to see some date choices coming into your email here soon so that we can get that solidified. We want to invite our county commissioner colleagues to join us as well and get that on the calendar soon. So that, be on the lookout for that. Mr. Marks.
Good evening, board members. Yes, we've had a good start to the career and tech job out there in this summer. It's not a start exactly when we wanted to. We wanted to start in June, but as you saw in the report, we had a start in July with the issuance of the permits. But our team is working well. If you drive by, you'll see a lot of action, a lot of items stored in the parking lot. The portables have been moved. So we're building our quickest we can, right now with all of our typical issues that anybody has, especially in a pandemic with materials and just regular everyday construction issues that we have. But we're doing okay. We're going to stay out of the students' way. We're excited that they're going to bring some students back for the support, and we'll make sure we're out of their way. And we're looking forward to just keep rolling into the fall.
A piece of good news. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Yes, thank you.
We have our challenges, but we're going to be okay. We're going to be
Okay.
fine.
Okay. All right. Board members, any other questions on the school construction report? Mr. Marks, I did have a couple of quick questions on some of the other items. Just on the HVAC replacement at Winfield Elementary. I know that, we had to change course on that, but we're still targeting the end of next summer for completion
Yes.
of that?
Yeah, that's good. That's our target. We're going to try to get that done alongside the roof. We're hoping that the state will fulfill their funding for that side of that, and we're trying to get both of them completed next summer.
Okay. And then, under the science room renovations for Westminster High, it said that, this may include evening work or weekend work to complete pending decisions on the opening of schools. And we had said that might be dependent on what small groups might be brought into the high school. Do we anticipate that being an issue, or do we still think that we'll need weekend or evening hours, or can we complete that during?
We think we're going to be okay. There might be some minor adjustments in forces to get some things done. We've had challenges, just like with all of the projects, with materials. For Westminster High, for the science rooms, the epoxy countertop plant had shut down in the summer. So like we had said before, we had worked through some options, and we got the rooms that really don't need an epoxy countertop with a different material approved from the science department. We've made things happen in those rooms. And those are the rooms that the staff is trying to get staff into to teach remotely from those rooms at the start of school. We're on track to have those ready. We're going through a lot of final inspections right now. The rooms are pretty much done. They're waiting for some technology installations, but we're awaiting some fire marshal inspections and some the regular end of project rush on certain things, but we think we'll be okay. The other rooms that need to wait for the epoxy countertops, those will be delivered in September. Hopefully that date will be met in September, and then we'll bring forces in to quickly finish the plumbing and the other pertinences that we have to for the countertops and those.
Great. Thanks, Mr. Marks. Board members, any other questions? Okay.
Ms. Savigny, you'll be happy to know that we did check the lobby at 6:30, and there wasn't another round of public comment. Nobody was here for
Okay.
that, so we skipped over that. So we didn't skip over. We looked to make sure there wasn't
Right.
anybody, but
Okay.
we can
We
then
did.
skip over this next agenda item because
Right.
we didn't have anybody here. for that.
Okay, I appreciate your going to look at 6:30, because clearly we were otherwise engaged in conversation with Mr. Singer at that point, but that's great. We can move on to Section 7, which is our action items. So the first item up, board members, I need a motion for the approval of appointments.
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Dorsey,
Second?
Second by Ms. Battaglia. So Dr. Lockard.
Okay, board members, this evening I have 2 recommendations for your approval this evening. The first is recommending Ms. Lauren Wilder Schaefer to the, she was assistant principal at Hampstead Elementary, recommending her appointment to local accountability coordinator for Carroll County Public Schools. That position is vacant due to a retirement. Then following that, with, if approved for Ms. Wilder Schaefer, filling her role, we're recommending Ms. Addison Beck, who's a teacher at Hampstead, to the role of acting assistant principal at Hampstead Elementary School. So 2 recommended appointments to you this evening.
Board members, any questions? No? And just as we have with each of the approval of appointments over the last couple of months, we'll just say that the standard process was not hindered in any way. And we were able to do a full assessment, and we feel very comfortable with these
Correct.
appointment recommendations.
Yes. Sadly, we've gotten very good at accommodating through all this in terms of making our process work. So yes, sadly in the fact that we're still having to do it, virtually in some cases, but we are doing all the components that we typically do for hiring.
Then with that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, can I get a verbal aye, please?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, now, board members, I need a motion for the approval of the personnel action items.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kyler,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Battaglia. Dr. Lockard.
Okay, board members, I am bringing you personnel action item. The list includes 48 new hires, 5 releases from contract, 1 promotion, 4 leaves of absence, and 6 changes in position, as detailed in the agenda packet. As with last month and the personnel action items, these numbers are fairly typical for this time of year. It typically is hiring season, and so that's why you see a large number of new hires being concluded.
And so with these 48 new hires, that will get us to the point that we're considered fully staffed for opening on September 8th.
Hi, we will have actually 5 remaining openings. 1 is a special ed, 1 reading, 1 elementary, 2 math, which we do expect to have completed and finalized by September 8th.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are the leaves of absence for a specific time, or they vary?
They are generally for the term of 1 year. And then they have the option to renew that period for another year.
I do note on here that out of the 48 new hires, 20 of them are step 1. I'm assuming that means that they're new teachers into the profession.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there are new teachers coming to us, new graduates, not coming from another system with prior experience.
Okay. Is it possible for us to require that they teach from a classroom? Because I can't imagine trying to do your very first teaching assignment virtual and remote.
So you have them for new teacher orientation. They will be reporting to the school to work with their administrators and their supervisors so that they can become familiar with the classroom and a classroom outline.
To answer your question a little bit further, the law that I described earlier this evening doesn't apply to employees who have less than 30 days, 30 days in the system.
Okay.
So you wouldn't have that person taking the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, and under regular FMLA, they have to be employed for a year with a minimum of 1,250 hours.
Okay. Okay. So, and Ms. Baptist, you had said that they'll be reporting to the schools during the, or typical orientation week. But how would we feel about requiring that they teach from the classroom, since they aren't subject to the concerns that we discussed earlier tonight?
I'd say,
I don't know how you can separate that. I understand what you're saying.
Board members, if I might, for what it's worth, I do believe we're going to have a significant number of teachers coming to their workstations. We're holding our return to school professional development that we typically hold every year. We're holding those in person. We're anticipating that we're going to have a significant number of staff return for those. We've got all the protocols set up to get everybody spaced out. We do have plans in place if for any reason somebody can't make that. And so I'm imagining our new teachers are probably going to want to be as involved in that as possible. As a new teacher myself long ago, I relied on my teammates and the resources at my school. And so I know principals go to great lengths to connect their new teachers with all of those folks in their building so that they can be successful. Our job, if we're hiring you, we think you're good and we want to make you the best. And so we're going to do everything we can to train you up, get you the support you need. And so I do believe that they'll get that regardless. Our teachers spend a lot of time in these meetings just like this, even if they're not standing right next to each other. So I do believe we'll have, for what it's worth, a significant amount of folks taking advantage of the opportunity to come in. And I would think that would include our new teachers.
And I appreciate that, and
Bless you.
one of the tough things about this, some of the texts, some of the emails, and it's just gonna get me more, which I'll take it, is the lunatic fringe. I mean, since we discussed it, we've got a couple emails flat out calling us names and telling us how ignorant we are. And I think, Ms. Savigny, your point was well taken because you care about the new teachers and you want them to come into the system the best way. And I think you explained it very well. But I just wish everybody that's not in the lunatic fringe would at least appreciate that we're trying to discuss it and in the best interest of our students and our staff. And I'll wait for more emails.
All right, so not hearing any other questions, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, can I get a verbal aye, please?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, board members, now I need a motion for the award of bids.
so moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kyler. Thank you. All right, Dr. Lockard.
Board members, we have 2 items on the award of bids. Originally, we had 3 items, and we were going to recommend to remove one of the items. That item was a repair to a damaged shed if you remember, we had a very random, sort of bizarre tornado in the middle of February, I think it was. Was it February? Or January?
It was forever ago.
Yes, but it was odd that it came in the winter months. And destroyed a couple of pole barns that we had in a maintenance cluster near West Middle School. We are getting ready to award a bid for repairing that. It falls under the MABE insurance claim. We believe we're going to be fully reimbursed under our insurance policy. We thought it would be ready and approved for this meeting, and we still think it will happen. We just don't have the official word on that So I'd rather just pull that and approve it next time when we actually have the full remittance of the insurance claim. Mr. O'Neill, did I capture that correctly?
I don't know if there we go. You did indeed. I'll take the responsibility for that. It's a sequencing of when we submit things for board share, you try to anticipate that everything will be complete by the time the meeting gets here, because that's a couple weeks earlier, and we just didn't quite make it in terms of having the final claim approval. So it's not a big operational issue just to wait a month for that claim to be fully approved and bring it back.
Okay.
And I think everybody should understand, it's waiting for a month. It's going to be funded.
Yeah.
It's not like it's at risk. It's just not prudent to spend money before you have it.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Right, so I guess from a logistical standpoint, we'll just be removing item number 2 from the award of bids, so that'll be, so, I'll make a motion to remove item number 2 from the award of bids, so that when we vote, we will only be voting on items 1 and 3.
Very
Item
good.
2 will be deferred till next month. Do I have a second?
I would second that, but I have a different form. I have one there was a revised form. We're not looking at the revised form?
Right, that'll be the revision that we'll post if we approve the amendment here this evening.
And Dr. Dorsey, it was revised for us, but I think that if anybody from outside's watching the meeting, they see the old form.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, what was posted on the website, what people are seeing is the 3 items.
Okay, done. I forgot that part.
So now are you still seconding it?
I will, sure.
Okay, seconded by Dr. Dorsey. Thank you for that. All right, so with that, that we can,
Yeah, that leaves 2 items. The facility management software, this is a piggyback award for the annual fee for our facility management software. It's known as School Dude. This is the software we use for inventory and work order management as well as facility planning. We typically will reference this every year when we discuss the FCI, the Facility Condition Index, as part of the CIP. We hope to also expand use in the future for automating the community use of facilities, which would help us tremendously moving forward with that. And I'll tell you the other item, and then you can ask about these. Emergency procurement for PPE, personal protective equipment. As we brought to you in prior months, in order to be ready, we are moving as quickly as we can to get the items that we need. We believe we need for our schools to be open and functioning. And this is they're called nitrile gloves. They're specific to our school nurses and the health suites. So we have staff available if you have any questions about either of those 2 bid items.
and Mr. O'Neill, the contract for School Dude Solutions, the $34,334, is that for a 1-year contract?
I believe that is the 1-year fee, and Mr. Prokop could confirm. I'm almost 100% sure that's the annual fee for the software. But Ray, are you there?
Yes, you're correct, Joe.
Okay.
And also, President Savigny, if I might, because I think you asked me this in passing recently, and it was a good reminder. And Dr. Locker just referenced this additional emergency procurement. The board had asked us in the past to begin reporting on the fiscal accounting of the pandemic. We intend to begin to bring those reports to you with the next meeting in September. So this item and all of the other items you've discussed throughout, we'll begin to have in one place where you and the public can reference it in an ongoing way.
Okay, excellent. So that'll be a report item, I guess, for the September meeting?
For September, correct.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. All right, board members, any other questions on the award of bids? Okay, then I will call for the vote on the award of bids as amended. All those in favor, can I get a verbal aye, please?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, moving on to item 7D. So now we'll run through the membership committees of each one of the board-appointed committees.
That's right, board members, these next 6 items are the approval of the annual membership for each of the advisory councils, We talked at the beginning of the agenda when covering the agenda topics and action plans for the councils. The membership composition is outlined in your board policy and administrative regulations, and these recommended rosters are in alignment with that policy. So each of those each of the advisory committee memberships are listed there.
Okay.
And again, staff available for any questions.
Okay, so with that preface, I'll ask for a motion for the approval of the Carroll County Teacher Advisory Council membership for 2020 to 2021.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia. Someone.
I'll second.
Thank you. Seconded by Dr. Dorsey. Okay, so board members, any questions on the TAC membership? And for this particular, so I'm the board member for this particular committee, and Dr. Dorsey, you're the alternate. I would certainly like to stay on this one. Are you comfortable with that as well, as staying the alternate?
Yes, very much so.
Okay, great. I did have a quick question about that. There are only 3 new folks this year, but we have, so it looks like maybe we got a little off in a rotational cycle because there's 7 rolling off next year.
Yeah, that looks like that happened about 3 years ago. And I couldn't tell you the reason why because I wasn't here, but you're correct. I think the last year we brought on, I'm looking back here. Yeah, we brought on more than 3 last year. It looks like we had brought on about 6 or 7 last year, new members. This year it's 3. It's our Teacher of the Year, Jenna Eamon, Sally Powell, who's an ESOL resource teacher, as well as Katie Wraith, who's a math teacher at North Carroll Middle School.
Board members, any other questions? Okay, then with that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, can I get a verbal aye, please?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you.
Did Devontae have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Okay.
Sorry. About the question.
Okay.
Now I'm hearing things.
That's okay. We're all get a little
All
punchy, right?
passionate
Okay. All right. Now we need a motion for the approval of the Carroll County Special Education Citizens Advisory Committee membership for 2020-2021.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kyler. Thank you. All right, board members, any questions on the makeup of the membership of this committee?
I see we have a vacancy for the student rep.
Correct. We are still looking for a student representative. We typically will have a student from our post-secondary program participate, and we're still working to make that arrangement. But we will work to have a student rep on the committee.
And Nick, it looks like we have representatives from most schools, but we're missing, I saw 5 that it looked like we were missing, three middle schools and 2 high schools. Is that intentional, or we just haven't found a parent rep for those particular schools?
Correct. The principals of those schools are still working hard to find a representative for us. And when they do, they'll get that name to me, and we'll include them in the group.
Okay. Did I hear someone else trying to jump in and ask a question? Well, Dr. Dorsey, I guess I'm hearing things too. All right, then with that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, can I get a verbal aye, please?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, now we need a motion for the approval of the Community Advisory Council membership for 2020-2021.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Kyler. All right, board members, any questions on this?
I would still like to be the Board of Education member, if that's okay. Okay.
Was that a resounding support from the?
Apparently.
Okay. Okay, so Ms. Battaglia, we can add you as the Board of Education, I would keep you as the Board of Education member on the CAC. Great. I did just want to make a comment that I saw a few staff names as the representative for schools, but not nearly as many as we had seen in prior years. So we're really, and I'm turning around to look at Ms. Gaddis, not nearly as many as we had seen in prior years. So we're really making good progress in terms of getting parent representation.
I think there was only one school and they're actively looking for someone.
Okay, okay, fantastic.
And you have the same person representing Cranberry Station and East Middle?
Yes, she's got kids at both schools.
Both
so,
schools?
Yeah.
Neat.
Okay, board members, any other questions or comments? All right, then I will call for the vote on these as amended because we've added Ms. Battaglia's name back in as the board member rep. So all those in favor as amended, can I get a verbal aye, please? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously, thank you. Okay, now we need a motion for the approval of the Security Advisory Council membership for 2020, 2021.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Kyler. Okay, board members, Marcia, did you want to
Yes,
declare
I
that?
would still
okay.
like, yes.
Okay.
And I didn't say anything, but they had already put my name down for special ed, so.
Okay, board members, any other questions on the?
Well, just a general question. Is there not a student representative on this council as well?
There is not, Ms. Mystery, and we have thought about that over time, and we continue to think about that. And you would have noted earlier in the agenda, one of our outreach goals is to better get in touch with our students and bring them into advising us on the security protocols. The difficulty is that there are some subject matters that it really may not be appropriate to have a student, unfortunately, participate in just some of those discussions. And so, you're raising a point that has been raised, how we eventually arrived at trying to address getting a student perspective and involving the students more in terms of the culture and ownership and understanding of the security protocol our program was to do it through the outreach efforts that were part of the charges. It's not something we've just dismissed. It's just that some of the subject matter makes it a little bit more challenging or difficult to have a student be there all the time in the room.
John, that's well said. That's correct.
Okay, thank you for the information. Clarification.
I did have one other question, and this is not meant as in any way negative about the person's name that I'm about to say, but Mr. Schilling is on here as the parent rep for the Citizens Advisory Council, but he is also a teacher, is he not?
He is, and it's interesting you bring up that section, President Savigny, because sitting here looking at it, I'll have to revise this and get Ms. Lucida to repost it. It won't change the substance of the names, but those last three names in that section are not bargaining unit people, they're parents. There should be a separate section that says parents. So for all of the bargaining units that you see listed above, and then for the three parents, we've always asked the representative group each year to send us the names of the individuals they want to serve for that year, and we haven't modified the names they send us. So in the case of the CAs of the parents, we reach out to the Community Advisory Council and ask them for three parents who are willing to serve. And so I guess Rob is both a teacher and a parent, and so his name came across in this instance as a parent.
Okay. So just making sure that we have the parent representation that we're looking for on each one of these committees. So, okay.
Sure. And we certainly are open to a different process. That's the process we've used since, in terms of getting representatives from each of those groups, we've used the CAC since this form, but we certainly can go about it differently in the future as well.
Okay. Board members, any other questions? All right, then with that, I will call for the vote as amended with Marcia as the board member representative. All those in favor, can I get a verbal aye, please?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously, thank you. And now we need a motion for the approval of the Carroll County Career and Technical Education Local Advisory Council membership for 2020, 2021.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Dr. Dorsey, thank you. Okay, board members, any questions? These student representatives we had already appointed back in March, right? There are no changes to these student reps, correct?
That's correct, no changes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Eccles. Board members, any other comments, questions? All right, then, do we have the board member name on here?
Ken.
Yes.
Kenny.
It's Kenny, okay. And Kenny, you would like to stay?
Yes.
Okay. All right, then with that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, can I get a verbal aye, please? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously, thank you. Okay, and now we need a motion for the approval of the Carroll County Curriculum Council membership for 2020, 2021.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Kyler. Okay, board members, any questions or comments on this one? Okay, then with that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, can I get a verbal aye, please? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously, thank you.
And I am the Board of Ed rep for
Oh.
that committee.
Thank you for that, Dr. Dorsey. Is your name,
Yep.
Yes.
it's already on here? Okay, so approving as submitted was appropriate. Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you, Dr. Dorsey. All right, now we need a motion for the approval of the Maryland Association of Boards of Education MABE dues for 2020, 2021.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia,
I'll second that.
seconded by Dr. Dorsey. Dr. Locker, did you have any comments on that one?
Briefly, this is the approval of the annual dues for MABE membership. We've discussed this in the past and how each of you is very active. MABE member participating on committees and partaking in the array of professional development which MABE offers to board members.
And board members, I know every year we usually circle back real quickly just to make sure that we believe this is valuable services, and we've, each time we've always come out to the conclusion that it is. Don't know if there's any other comments or questions that anyone wants to ask.
Just real quick, why was there an increase?
There we go.
virtual.
There it is, yep, 9%.
MABE has an annual budget process, much like a local board of ed, and in the course of that budgeting process, so with voting members representing all 24 local school district boards of ed, they set their budget and determine usually at least 1 or 2 years in advance what the fee structure would need to be in order for them to maintain their operations, and somebody, I'm not sure if one of you serves on the committee that votes on the budget or not, who may have more detail than I know. I just know that annually they work through their budget, and part of that becomes what the fee structure would be for boards of ed. I'm not versed enough to tell you precisely what it is, but it's tiered based on the size of your school system, the number of students in your school system. So it's not a specific fee for Carroll and a specific fee for whoever else. It's X thousand students equals this dues structure is how that works.
Your question is a good one, though, Ms. Battaglia. I mean, a 9% increase when the rest of the world is,
I'm hesitant to say much because I'm not part of any committee at MABE where they vote where the vote is on the overall MABE due structure. I do represent you on the MABE Legal Services Administration, which is a separate subsection of MABE that deals with policy and legal advice. And so I do sit in those meetings where they vote on that aspect of the budget at MABE. And there's been a similar dues increase in the LSA dues over the last 2 years. But that was in part because dues increases were held at MAPE for many, many years prior, and so they were actually sort of straining to maintain a solvent budget at that point. I think that's true in the case of the MAPE dues in general as well, but I can't attest to that with 100% accuracy. I believe that. I heard that in those LSA discussions as well, but I'm not 100% sure. But I do think they had frozen dues for as long as they could.
Okay.
any other questions? Okay, then with that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, can I get a verbal aye, please?
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you. Now I need a motion for the approval to eliminate reduced meal price.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia,
Second.
seconded by Dr. Dorsey. Dr. Lockard.
Okay, board members, this recommendation is brought on behalf of Ms. Karen Sarno, who leads our food services program. We saw her earlier this evening. She referenced this. We're recommending that the board, effective with this school year, eliminate the cost for reduced meals prices, so that in essence, all school meals are free for all students who were eligible for free and reduced meals. This is change that the state is moving to in FY22. Under Ms. Sarno's leadership, our food service program has become very stable and is even generating a small, healthy fund balance. Ms. Sarno can absorb any additional cost this action may require in FY21, but we're also optimistic it may lead to greater meal participation, which in turn increases our federal reimbursement. And I don't know if she's still with us this evening, if you had questions, but yes, she is.
So essentially, she's asking us to vote to reduce it, but she's going to absorb all the money.
Saw that quick thumbs up from her. I mean, net, it ends up being a positive overall, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
That's the plan, yeah.
okay. Board members, any questions or concerns with this proposal? No? Okay. Then with that, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, can I get a verbal aye, please?
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, now we need a motion for the approval of the instructional materials from the Family Life and Human Development Committee.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Kyler. Dr. Lockard.
Sure. I think we have staff on here for this conversation as well. We're presenting video and textbook materials which were reviewed and approved for instruction in grade 5, kindergarten, and first grade elementary health course by the CCPS Family Life and Human Development Committee. They're being presented to the board for review and approval.
Okay, Ms. Herbert, did you
Yeah,
want to?
yeah, I'm on. I know that we've always let our families come review these, and this says this has been reviewed and approved, but I don't ever remember seeing any information out about this.
No.
About to be read or approved or anything. Or did I miss it? I don't think I did. Did anybody?
I don't think you missed it, Ms. Herbert. I do know there's been, over the past couple of years, there's been some revision to the process. And so I asked Ms. Tobias and Ms. McCausland to be available to answer any questions. So Chris or Angie, are you guys on?
I am. Hi, good evening, everybody. Chris Tobias.
Hi, Chris.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable voting for this one tonight, just so board members know, because there isn't a date when the committee met, and I think that, Mr. Anderson, you had referenced that the process has changed over the years, but I know that the development of the Family Life Committee was meant to have significant parent involvement in these decisions, to have parents come in and review the materials for very sensitive subject materials for their younger kids. And it seems like we've really gotten away from that. I mean, there's only one parent representative on here. So I don't believe that these titles that we were talking about were even on the Curriculum Council list of materials to be reviewed this year. So I'm very uncomfortable with I'm not saying anything about content, but I'm just very uncomfortable with the process that was used. And I think that there needs to be, we need to make sure that we have significant parent input into the Family Life Committee. I mean, that is actually the purpose of the Family Life Committee, in my impression, certainly.
Yeah.
So.
Can I just kind of speak to the formation of the committee and the members that were selected to be on it? And then I do agree that I think that, based on some of the things that we're trying to do in the community, trying to get more parents involved would be a great thing, not a negative thing at all. I think we would encourage that. The materials that you're seeing in front of you went to 7 elementary school health writer curriculums, curriculum writers from the elementary world. These 7 teachers selected and reviewed the materials. We then took them to the school health council, because we have that school health council that we have the wellness policy with. And I thought that was a very good representation of some of our community members that have credentials, such as being a nurse or being in one of the agencies that we have. And I'll speak to that in just a minute. But we asked School Health Council for a presence on the Family Life Committee. And we did have 10 people that were interested in that. And 5 of them came as we presented the materials to review. Among those were one supervisor of the violence and intervention programs and outreach for the Family and Children's Services, one school counselor, one parent representative that is also in Curriculum Council, one student representative that's also in Curriculum Council, 2 nursing supervisors. One is a maternal nurse health supervisor, and the other is Carroll County Public Schools Health Services supervisor, one nurse practitioner that is an OBGYN, and then one pediatric registered nurse. So that was the idea, to get some of those people that have that expertise in that field, as we are particularly this year looking at the puberty video that needed to be updated. But I can see also what you were saying, that you would like some more parent involvement from that. And, that is absolutely fine too. So, I know that when we looked at the different COMAR regulations that were there, the language had said from COMAR that the school system should establish a joint committee of educators and representatives of the community for the purpose of reviewing and commenting on instructional materials. And then we also have the language within our Carroll County administrative regulations that says the standing committee shall be comprised of educators and representatives of the community. So I do see what you're saying there. Also, you would like more of a parent representation than the community. I think that we had a great representation from our community, but you're saying that you would like some more parent involvement, correct?
I would, me personally, I mean, speaking as one of five, I'd like to get other folks' input on this, but from my perspective, I understand from a health curriculum standpoint, you know, we would want this type of makeup of a committee, and that would be part of the curriculum council. And even the curriculum council has significant parent representation from each one of the schools on that council. But my understanding of that the Family Life Committee was meant to be primarily parents reviewing, not necessarily community members and educators, but parents being able to review these materials that are potentially sensitive that are being provided to their younger children. So I think it's a significant oversight that we don't have significant parent representation on the Family Life Committee, and that we have at best one parent who may have seen these materials and.
But they're also in a profession
Well, I
where
also
it's
want to say the
medical.
parents reviewing, I think when you go into the language in the regs, the parents reviewing, it also is when the materials have already been selected, the parents have the opportunity to preview or review them before their students see them. So when we look at those regulations, we might want to go back and look at that to make sure that we all are understanding exactly what was intended by those administration regulations.
So
I think it might make.
I was just gonna say.
I mean, I think that's a good idea for us to review that.
Right, so while we're on the topic, let's have that conversation as a board. How many parents would we like to add to the Family Life and Human Development Committee? And then we can certainly, table the approval, get those folks on that, have them review that, and move forward. So what's the board thinking in terms of, I do think it's good to have some of the community professionals that we see on here, but I also certainly understand, just a parent perspective who maybe doesn't have two hats or two roles and serves in some of these other pieces, as Ms. Tobias said, so.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think it needs to be a group, and yet we always want the community involved, but this is a little different, and I think we really need to have more families.
I'm thinking like 2 for elementary, 2 for middle, 2 for high school. That way you have 2 parent representatives from each age group. I mean, I think that'd be appropriate, different backgrounds. I mean, I think, because unfortunately, I mean, you have families who there are certain things they're not ready to have discussions with their kids with. And I think that's something that needs to be,
Yeah, because this has definitely changed from
Yes.
when I was,
Yes.
used to go to every school and it was
Right.
reviewed by all the parents and all that.
Yeah.
So I know it's a slimmed down version, but we still need more parent involvement.
Right.
I mean, you still have parents who don't approve of their child seeing the middle school puberty videos. I mean, it's, they don't. So, I mean, I think, but parents, but definitely being part of this, 2 for each age group, I think would be.
Does it make sense to include this as a discussion item at the September meeting where we can kind of go back and understand, okay, what the process was, how it's evolved over time, and maybe come up with a recommendation for what the makeup of the committee would look like?
Yeah.
For a discussion at September? We can table the.
They've made very good choices of who they put on there. I mean, they have done that. We just definitely need to add.
We did, and we had 2 more parents that are also part of the school health council that were supposed to be there, but it just didn't work out for one reason or another. They had RSVP'd that they were going to come, and then it didn't happen, and then COVID hit. So, there were 2 other parents that were supposed to be there also.
For this is kindergarten, grade 1 and 5. Does this, would this, in some years, be anything for high school? Is there any reason to have high school parents on it? And it could be, correct?
Absolutely. That changes from year to year, and there are different materials that we are going to have to purchase to be in alignment with the new state standards that have just come out for health education. We have some areas that we do not have curriculum materials for, so we will have to bring that to the committee, and that spans grades K through 12, filling in those gaps. So yes. that would change from year to year. We just had not a whole lot of movement as far as state curriculum, so there weren't a lot of changes that were being made, and new materials didn't need to be purchased because we were meeting those old indicators. With those indicators changing and evolving over time, we will need to have this committee a little bit more, I think, solidified than what it has been in past years, because that is important as we're reviewing these materials that are so sensitive. We want to have that voice. I know that I want to have the voice also from our partnership with the health department and the school health council, because I think it's really important to have those people that work in those jobs that are directly related to, puberty education, and that OBGYN perspective also as we're reviewing materials K to 12.
Yeah, I think you have a committee that well represents that portion. And I wouldn't want to see
So
anything
President
deleted,
Siddiqui, I
just
hear
add.
that you're saying that we should bring this back for discussion in September, and at that time, we'll go over the current process and then the potential addition of extra family members to the committee.
Does that timing hurt anything? That'll make it then the next month till something's decided, maybe.
With family life, it won't, because we try to get this topic, because it's elementary school, it tends to happen in the spring of the year. So that still gives us plenty of time to get things organized, so we are in compliance with some of those indicators that these materials do address. If we have that meeting in September, that absolutely gives us enough time to do that.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay,
So
great.
we will come back in September.
So do we table it, or we just don't vote, or withdraw the motion?
I think we just table it and don't vote on so we made a motion and a second, but we're just not going to vote on it. Is that okay?
You have to vote on tabling, if you're gonna table.
Okay, then I will make a motion to table item 7L for later discussion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Battaglia. Any other discussion? Okay, then I'll call for the vote on the motion to table this item. All those in favor, can I get a verbal aye, please?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Okay, now we need a motion for the approval of the transfer of school bus contracts.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Kyler. Dr. Lockard.
Okay, board members, occasionally we bring you the fairly routine reassignment of school bus contracts from one contractor to another. As I said, as these happen from time to time, we are required to review and approve them, and so we submit to you for your final approval as outlined in the agenda item there.
Board members, any questions? So John, I had made a note on my papers from the discussion that you and I had the other day, about what questions should I be asking about these, and, is there any budget impact, and these are fairly routine changes.
Correct. These are just transfers of existing contracts, so, minus a dollar or two here or there, depending on location. There's no overall budget impact to your approved budget.
Right, and these are relatively routine. We see these.
Sure, they happen throughout the year, probably 3 or 4 times a year.
And of significance on this one, you mentioned Mr. Rill earlier.
Yes. Board members, any other questions? No. Then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, can I get a verbal aye, please?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, now we need a motion for the approval of the revisions to Board Policy ADD, Threats, Violent Acts, and Weapons Prohibited. Moved by Ms. Battaglia,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Kyler. Okay, Dr. Lockard.
Okay, board members, we had a lot of conversation at the last meeting. We are returning approval of revisions to policy ADD at this meeting. We're also providing for reference the administrative regulations corresponding to policy ADD. Ms. McCabe, Mr. Streeter, Mr. Williams all presented the proposed revisions at last month's meeting. And this final version provided this evening for action includes the edits suggested by Dr. Dorsey to incorporate COMAR definitions into the document itself. Again, we have the policy as well as, for reference, the administrative regulations. And that has sat since the last meeting for any comment.
So we did have that put out for public comment. I don't recall seeing any, but I heard that we did have one or two items.
And Ms. McCabe, can you, we did have just a couple of pieces of feedback, correct?
Yes, we had just a couple of pieces of feedback that people thought that that retired police officers should be able to carry on school property. But again, that was not a change in this policy at all. That's been the same for a very long time. So we didn't get any. We didn't get comments about the changes in the policy or the regs that we're making.
Okay. And I guess it does make sense to.
Remembers that question, though not proposed last month as a change when it was discussed. You did ask Mr. Williams to reach out to the sheriff and his command for the sheriff's view on whether or not that should remain, and their view is that it should remain as is.
Okay.
Plus, I thank you for the clarity that was provided in the definitions for the weapons. Thank you.
Yes, that was the only change that was made between the last meeting and this meeting, was just the definitions which you requested.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So board members, any other questions on the policy changes? No? Okay, then with that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, can I get a verbal aye, please?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. And then, Dr. Lockard, items 7O and 7P are the administrative regulations that go along with that policy, and there were some changes to those. Now, these do not require a vote, so I don't need to ask for a motion or anything like that for items 7O or 7P.
That's correct, you don't. We included them for reference so you could see the corresponding changes that were made.
Right. And so, board members, I think we kind of touched on it as we were talking about the policy, but any questions about the administrative regulations that were included for reference? No? Okay, great. So we can then move on to item 7Q. Board members, I need a motion for the ratification of the master agreement with the Carroll County Education Association.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kyler. Dr. Lockard.
All right, board members, I'm very pleased to bring you the approval for ratification of the master agreements with, actually, the remaining 3 employee groups. We've done a couple others at previous meetings. All groups have confirmed ratification by the membership. We discussed last month how the negotiation process, just like everything else, was thrown off course over the last 8 months. But to everyone's credit, we were able to stick with it. Everyone's worked hard, and everybody modified their expectations as we moved forward to find resolution. So these ratifications this evening concludes the process with all of our bargaining groups, just in time to start again.
And as you said, Dr. Lockard, this is a little bit later in the year than we would typically doing this ratification. However, there was no real concerns going on. It was simply a matter of timing.
Right.
With the COVID outbreak and everything having to go virtual. And so it was just a time frame issue. There were no concerns behind the scenes.
Correct.
Ms. Battaglia, I saw you reaching for your microphone. Was that just sneeze? Okay. All right, board members, any questions? Comments? No? All right, then with that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, can I get a verbal aye, please?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously, thank you. Okay, board members, now I need a motion for the ratification of the master agreement with Carroll County School Food Services Association.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia, seconded by Dr. Dorsey.
Yes.
Board members, any questions or comments?
Mm-mm.
Okay, then with that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, can I get a verbal aye, please?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously, thank you. And now we need a motion for the ratification of the master agreement with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, also known as AFSCME, Local 2741.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Kyler. Okay, board members, any questions on this one? No? Okay, then with that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, can I get a verbal aye, please?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Now, we had one item that we had added to the agenda as item 7T, which is for daycare lease agreements. So can I get a motion for the approval of the daycare lease agreements?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Battaglia,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Kyler. Okay, Dr. Locker, do you want to tee that one up for us?
Sure, I'm actually going to jump right to Mr. O'Neill, who is ready to explain that, and we can move it forward.
Sure, and we appreciate your willingness to entertain an addition to the agenda. And basically what we would be asking is for you, the board, to have an approval to delegate authority to Dr. Locker to sign the child care leases on your behalf this year. And it's just a matter of timing based on some of the things that are going on with the pandemic. And just to try quickly by way of background, I'm sure you know that for many, many years we've had annual leases with a number of daycare providers, usually only in most of the elementary schools, and they provide before and after school daycare programs for the community, not only for the school system employees. And with the situation with the pandemic, and then the plan to open it first in the enhanced full virtual model, Mr. Prokop, who actually brings these to us as part of an extension of community use of facilities, has had a lot of articulation with those providers and had some discussion about, as long as we're in virtual, could the traditionally before and after school care programs be full day? And so we've had dialogue back and forth to say that we could be okay with that. We understand the reasoning, and our conditions would be that we confine to just the traditional space and not expand throughout the building, where we'd have a hard time keeping up with protocols and cleaning protocols, that sort of thing. And also that the adjusted leases would be clear that at the minute that you shift to an in-person model, the hybrid model or beyond, that those programs would have to revert back to before and after school care in the traditional space as well. So that's what we're looking for. The issue of timing is that if we would do this and then have to wait for the next meeting, and the statistics and the things that you've been talking about should be such that we could open hybrid, it wouldn't really allow them the opportunity to get up and running before we would be saying, it's too late. So if you could delegate the authority to Dr. Locker, then we could approve these as they come up, and they could be up and running presumably with the start of the school year.
Yeah, and Mr. Kyler, I know you had a couple of caveats that you'd like to make sure that we cover.
And I think he covered some of them in the conversation, but this shouldn't delay us transitioning to either hybrid or full, and there be the proper termination terms in the thing to cover that.
Correct. So Mr. Prokop and I would work with Mr. O'Mealy to make sure that all the language in the lease agreement meets those needs.
So essentially that we could, because we've been talking about a 2-week turnaround in terms of once we decide to go hybrid, that we would make that happen. So it would, so if that's a 2-week turnaround, it would need to be similar.
2 weeks, 10 days, 1 week, whatever period of time we need. We'll write it so that we have that ability
Okay.
for the lease to conclude for the full day version and revert back to the before and after
before and
school as
after,
we traditionally do.
which doesn't, interfere. And Mr. O'Neill, in our buildings, they still need to abide by all the daycare guidelines from the state.
Yes.
This doesn't change their guidelines in any way.
Correct. It does not have their own guidelines and their own operational rules that they would have to abide by. And then, of course, they'd have to abide by our rules and protocols as well, and including the limitations on space that can be occupied.
So I believe you'd have to rephrase the motion.
Yes.
Based upon that.
So the motion will be that we are giving Dr. Lockard temporary leeway to approve the daycare lease agreements, subject to the proper termination.
Right, I think the motion should be, the board moves to delegate to the superintendent the authority to enter into the daycare leases, subject to the negotiation of an appropriate termination provision whereby the extended day provision would end on notice of the board so that the board could reopen for the hybrid model.
So moved.
I was just
John
gonna
was
say.
smiling. I was cracking up in his face. He was like dying.
Moved by Mr. Kyler. Andy, did you get all of that?
Rewind it a few times to catch that.
Oh, my.
Okay, so moved by Mr. Kyler. Seconded by Ms. Battaglia. Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Emili.
I actually did get all that.
Okay, excellent. I knew you would.
Woman.
Have complete faith in you, Andy. All right, board members, any other questions or comments before I call for the vote on that? No? Okay, then all those in favor, can I get a verbal aye, please? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously, thank you. Okay, so now we move on to unfinished business and new business. Before I announce the upcoming meetings, does anyone have unfinished business or new business items that they wish to bring up?
Are we gonna continue discussion regarding?
I know that we had said that if we had a vote, a possible impending vote as part of the Section 4 discussions about COVID updates, that we would do it here. So we had some pretty extended discussion. We should probably take the vote on the synchronous discussion. So it was proposed that it was a 50% target synchronous with office hours and or support not being part of that 50% synchronous target. So I think it's probably prudent for us to take a vote on that, just that we're all comfortable. I'll make a motion for the approval of the 50% synchronous target, which excludes support time as part of that 50% target.
So moved.
Okay, so moved by Ms. Battaglia,
Yep.
Second.
seconded by Mr. Kyler. Okay, board members, any other comments or questions on that? I think that we hit that one pretty well early on.
And it's per all the discussion and.
For all the discussion that we had earlier, and that includes the amount of time for, that is approved, so it's the 150 minutes of time for the elementary day, the 240 for middle school, and the 330 for high school, and then the 50% target synchronous of those numbers.
I'm good with that.
Okay, everyone, any additional comments that folks want to make on that?
No, I think we talked about it.
Okay, then I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Can I get a verbal aye, please?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously, thank you. And the last one that we discussed that I think will require a vote, I'm not sure that we'll be making the vote tonight, but teachers teaching, whether we wanted to make that a mandate for teachers to teach from the classroom. We had said that we were revising the teacher intention forms to include discussions of would you be applying for a waiver. I guess what we could potentially take a vote this evening to say that we would require it subject to waivers and decide what those waivers need to be and get the feedback from the teacher intention forms. Or we could simply, my concern with waiting to get the forms back is that we're not giving teachers enough time to react to that situation.
Yeah.
Because the earliest we could have that feedback and have it tallied and talk about it would be late August, which is really only going to give them about a week and a half till school technically started.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. O'Neill or Ms. McCabe, do you happen to have the survey from the teachers that we got a couple weeks ago? The results from that one?
It's on the, if Ms. Bowers has the plan open or can open it for you, Brenda, you can link to the results from the appendix in the back at the very end of the plan, and so we could all open it that way and look at it.
Because if I remember correctly, it had on there, there was questions regarding, was it, daycare and what percentage may come back. Just wanted to kind of see that again.
I'm opening it now.
I'm opening it as well right now.
Would be the second survey?
Yes.
Yes.
So the question of, while in Maryland Stage 2, are you comfortable returning to work in person as outlined in the draft reopening and recovery plan hybrid model is what we asked. At that time, 43% said no, 35% said yes, and 21% were undecided.
I'm sorry,
And
Ms.
for the-
McCabe, can you repeat those again?
There
It
it
was,
Sure. It was, so 35% said yes, they were comfortable coming back. 43% said no, and 21% were undecided. And for the folks who said no, they were not comfortable returning. Their top reasons were medical concerns for family member or for self.
oh, did we lose it? It looked like, oh, it was up.
Cindy, do you know the page number you're on?
That was, I am not in the document that Brenda is in. I'm in the PowerPoint presentation, slide number 17 of the reopening presentation that we did on the 29th of July, I think.
Let me see if I can find that. Unfortunately for Brenda and us, it's a 500-page appendix.
Yeah.
Because it has
Okay, so,
This is where you send your students.
And these are individual schools,
Right.
Brenda, so.
I'm trying to open that PowerPoint that Cindy referred to now, and then maybe I can share my screen.
Employee survey results, okay. Oh, there are the percentages that Cindy was quoting. 43, 21, 35.
Yes.
And if you answered no, then the reasons reported were,
Yes, those top reasons were medical concern for family member first, and then medical concern for self was second.
okay, so we did not ask about daycare situation as part of this question.
Right, we asked, on slide 18, we asked if schools were to be operating with the hybrid model in stage 2, would this cause daycare issues for your family? 22% said yes, 56% said no. 3% were undecided, and 19% were, it was not applicable.
Okay, so 22 said yes.
So 22% of employees said yes, returning to work would cause daycare issues.
For hybrid, right?
That was for a hybrid.
You
Right.
Know that we ever asked a question about
Right.
if we're in all virtual
Yeah,
and
we didn't ask that.
there's a requirement that you have to come in. We didn't.
Right.
We didn't do that.
do that.
Right, we didn't ask that question.
Okay.
But if we get that survey out this week, then we can have a number before we meet on, the 20.
So what, are we talking about meeting 2 weeks from today?
Yes.
Yes. The 26th of August.
Right.
So the
Then we'll have
26th.
numbers, right?
Yes.
So, and that will be just under 2 weeks until the start of school. Is it possible for us to say that we have the intent of, we want to require it subject to waivers? So if we were to say that there would be a family or a daycare situation waiver, as well as a health issue waiver, but short of those two items, that it would be required that they would come in. So if we said that it was our intent, not necessarily taking a vote on it, but if we can ask the questions in the survey that way, so that I think that we need to, well, first let me ask, is that our intent?
I think, per our discussion, I think it is. I think there's a lot of factors. I think it's a shame. I mean, I'm so happy that we moved our vote forward on this whole thing, and we want to try to give everybody as much notice, but I don't think it's fair to vote tonight on something that we're now asking the teachers to fill out their intent. I think we ought to wait and see the facts, and it's unfortunate, it makes the timing tight, but I think we owe that to them.
Okay.
I agree, Kenny.
Okay.
I think that's a valid point. We've got to find numbers.
Okay,
I mean,
so we'll get the
obviously-
feedback from the employees. I'm sorry.
I was gonna just say, obviously, if a teacher does want to go in, I mean, by all means.
And
Go
we,
for it.
and Dr. Zocker has said that many
Right,
times. The
right.
door is open, please
Right.
come.
Yep,
And I'm sure we will see a lot of teachers.
I believe
It's-
we will.
yes, yes.
I really do believe that, because we have them that are chomping at the bit to go. And then I do understand the ones that do have health concerns, so I think we
Yes.
need to see those numbers.
And I think it's health concerns. I think there's teachers that have, who knows, maybe updated their internet, that they prepared to do it. You know, I think there's a lot of factors in it, and I think we owe it to them to hear their reasoning. And I think they owe it to the students and the families of Carroll County to try to do what's best for them.
So we will send out the employee intention forms with that understanding. We'll have the responses compiled so that we will need to decide on the 26th if we're going to take a vote and make
Yep.
that vote. Can't happen any later than that point in
No.
time, is what I'm saying.
Nope.
Okay. All right, board members, were there any other items that I'm not thinking of that we needed to take a vote on or further discuss at this point? Okay. And so, Dr. Lockhart, I will say that, so we are now planning to set up a meeting. It's not on the agenda, but we will be setting up a meeting for 2 weeks from tonight for Wednesday, August 26th.
And what time will that be?
We'll have a 3:30 closed session and a 5 o'clock update meeting, board meeting.
Okay. And we will also at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, September 9th, 2020, we will have the regularly scheduled board meeting with citizen participation, scheduled at 5 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. here in the boardroom at 125 North Court Street, Westminster. Board members, any other items for this evening? As if that weren't enough.
Did we break the record?
We may have.
I think we did.
Yeah. All right. So then I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Herbert,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Battaglia. All those in favor, can I get a verbal aye, please? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
What little is left of it.